Heartlands on Midlands 103. Midlands 103. Just great radio.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to Heartlands here in Midlands 103 with me, the Reverend Nigel Gill. Folks, today we have a very different type of show. Today I am joined by the lay pastor of New Life Church in Birr, John Bulfin, a friend of his, Ray Flanagan, and also two ladies, Sarah and Abby. And Abby is someone who has got a condition which is causing her lower jaw to disintegrate, and we'll be hearing more about that later. But John and his friend Ray and another friend, George, have decided that they are going to run 200 kilometres each, that is, around the Kerry Way in an attempt to raise funds for surgery that is essential to saving Abby's jaw. We'll find out more about all of that in a little while. However, to get things started, we shall begin with Charlie's reading to us Psalm 124.
We're reading today from Psalms 124. If the Lord had not been on our side, let Israel say, if the Lord had not been on our side when people attacked us, they would have swallowed us alive when their anger flared against us. The flood would have engulfed us, the torrent would have swept over us, the raging waters would have swept us away. Praise be to the Lord, who has not let us be torn by their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the fowler's snare. The snare has been broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth.
John, Ray, you're both very welcome. We shall begin our conversation with both of you guys. The two of you have decided, in what I would consider madness, to run 200 kilometres each, along with George, in a fundraising attempt on Abby's behalf. However, the awareness of this was something that arose from your church in New Life Church in Birr. Can you tell me who you are as a church and why you have engaged in this project?
New Life Church is under the umbrella of Elim Ministries Ireland, and it was a sister or a brother church, if you like, of the Oasis Christian Fellowship in Roscrea. And Pentecostals, they're on the move these days and they're growing. How I got to be involved is a long story, and I don't think that's the focus for today's talk, but the main thing being Abby here. And as a group, we want to be practical in our approach to our Christianity, and a church member brought up Abby's case. Since I love running, and my friends love running, and all my friends are not necessarily members of the church, we decided that we'd run for Abby. That's basically where we're coming from. We want to be a little bit more practical in our approach to our faith than just talking about it.
So would you describe this endeavour as faith in action?
Well, it takes a bit of faith to run 200 kilometres over rocky terrain, which the Kerryway Ultra is. And, we think we can't do things, but there's a lot more in us than we realise if we have the faith to step out.
Ray, if we were just to turn to you for a few moments, you are one of the friends who is running with John and taking on this challenge of running this 200 kilometres cross-country terrain type run. How did you get involved in this sort of activity, and why are you stepping into this challenge?
In a strange way, 5 years ago, during COVID lockdown, I hadn't run for a long time. Like many people, we were confined. And my niece and her mum, my sister, were over visiting. And I just said, I saw a run here. I said, I wouldn't mind doing it. It's 200k. And my niece interjected, and she said, you're too old for that. So that was the catalyst for me. And when I mentioned it to John and George, they came behind me and we said, okay, let's show that we're not too old. Maybe that in years to come when we pass away, that they might see that, oh, look, my uncle wasn't too old, they were not too old. So that might encourage them later on when they reach maybe an impasse, a psychological or other impasse. It may have some benefit for them. That was I felt, encouraged me to do it.
So this was an anti-ageist protest?
No, it was more a kind of thing to say, to try and awaken the fact that you're never too old. As the Bible would say as well, that life is for living and that there's infinite possibilities out there if we awaken to them, That's primarily it, I think,
So you went and mentioned about age, your niece going and saying that you were too old.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things about this run for Abbey is that it has that you've got a combined age of 200 years. So what sort of age, if that's fair question to ask, are you guys in regard to approaching this run?
What kind of age? Well, I'm 63 years of age, born 23rd of February, 63, so that's my vintage. John?
I'm 70. As of race day, I'm still 69, so...
Yeah, and George's?
I'll be, on the 2nd of September, I'll be 70. And George is 67.
67.
So if you can do the maths there, which Sarah did, and surprise us by saying you're actually 200 years...
Combined.
Combined, yes.
So just to clarify, the guys are not 200 years old. They are actually, their ages combined is 200. And the distance that you're each travelling, though, is 200 kilometres. Each of you are doing a 200-kilometre run.
Yes, it's not a relay. We each cover the full distance.
I appreciate that the church, from the church, you want to be doing things from a practical sense. But what did Abby's case or cause mean for you guys? Why did you take it up as the cause to go running for?
Because with somebody local, somebody you can see their face, you can hear their story. It's something more personal than doing it for a charity, which is a generally good thing to do. But I always prefer the personal, getting to know what is the real problem here. What's the extent of this problem? For me, it was, the more I hear about it, the more it grabs me. The amount of money that's needed for this surgery is astronomical. How a parent can carry that burden, number one, and have any hope of reaching it, number two, and number three, just really, we all know the health system is a bit of a mess, but this really sticks in my craw, that a young person, 21, a girl who wants to have a good face, who wants to have a hope in life, who wants to, that she has this condition that could destroy her face, destroy her life, and glory be to God, her mother is doing the impossible, trying to raise this money. I just feel privileged to be part of what her mother is doing. To me, I'm doing a little thing. I love running. I would do the Kerry Way anyway. To me, it's just the privilege of being involved in this is what makes it so special this time round. It's more special this time round than when we ever did it. Last year was special because we all finished the race, which we had never done before. The three of us actually finished, and this year I know that with Abby on our hearts that we will all finish, and that'll be a wonderful experience for all of us, not just us three.
What sort of figure have you in mind to try and raise through this run?
Well, Sarah has done a great job in raising money. There's total amount needed, I think, was something like 91,000 euros for special German surgery to reverse this condition. We have set a target of 15,000 for our run. I think there's 21,000 altogether left that's needed. So if people get behind this, it'll leave Sarah's job as just a slight push to get it over the line. So we're excited about it, and we really, when you can change the trajectory of somebody's life positively, I think that's an awesome thing to be a part of. So yeah, 15,000, it's a lot. I think there's nearly 2,000 now, as of now. We're trying to push and create momentum, so that's...
How can a person support you guys? How can they find you?
Okay, us three guys, we're not handling money. We don't take a penny from anybody. Sarah has an account set up, a GoFundMe account, and I'm sure later on that Sarah will outline how people do that.
Is there anything else you guys want to say now before I let you off the hook?
Because I mean, why would Ray be involved in it? You asked me, but...
No, I'm delighted to know, Nigel, that you directing that at John. I need just to be here. Look, for me, any chance I get just to feel that if my presence alone or if my involvement at all has some positive impact, and if I'm out of the equation. I remember one saying, because I published something way back, to open our eyes we must shed more than tears, we must shed the burden of our egos. I'm trying to shed the burden of my ego, trying to go into the background, and yet in somehow way, before I pass away, that I do some positive thing, some practical thing for somebody. Shin scale, my director.
Heartlands on Midlands 103. Midlands 103. Just great
Welcome back to Heartlands here on Midlands 103 with me, the Reverend Nigel Gill. So folks, we've been talking about this 200-kilometre run along the Kerry Way that John and Ray and George are embarking on behalf of Abby. And Abby is here with us, and her mother Sarah is also here. So Abby, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us today. And could you please share with us what the condition is that you have, how it impacts your life, and what the proposed outcome of the surgery would be for you, please?
Yeah, I was born with a condition called ameliogenesis imperfecta, and that condition affects the formation of the enamel on your teeth. So the enamel is the protective layer that protects your teeth from acid and stuff like when you eat food, but I was born without it. So doing simple things like eating or brushing my teeth over the years were slowly damaging my teeth. But I wasn't actually diagnosed. I've had it since birth, but no one actually caught on to it until I was about 16. So I grew up with my teeth not being the right colour and being misshaped and constantly breaking and cracking, but I was always told that it was my fault and that I wasn't brushing enough or I wasn't doing enough things. So by the time I actually found out, it was, at the time, a huge relief to know that it wasn't my fault. But then, at the age of 21, I had to get the remainder of my teeth removed because what was left was just roots and they were exposed. So it was in a lot of pain. But at the age of 21, I got them all removed and I was given a full set of dentures, top and bottom. And in just last year, I went back to my dentist to look at getting dental implants, and that was when they discovered that the form of ameliogenesis imperfecta that I have also affects my jawbone. So not only did it mean that my enamel didn't form as a kid, but it meant that after the teeth were removed, the roots of your teeth are the only thing keeping your jawbone from slowly deteriorating. But once mine were removed, the deterioration that naturally happened almost on steroids. So I was told, and I don't know the exact, but that my jawbone was dangerously thin and had gotten significantly in the 2 years that I hadn't had teeth. Way more than anyone could have assumed. And so much so that I was given about 6 to 9 months before the bone got so thin that it would collapse. And that would have caused my sinuses to collapse, leading for me not to be able to breathe. So it was life-threatening in a sense, and it was a massive shock, because I had thought a lot of this, everything was behind me now that my teeth were gone. And Ireland, we were told that they would be able to do the surgery publicly in 3 years, which obviously I had less than a year. So they also had told us that if my jaw collapsed in that time, they would cover me being on a ventilator, but that I would be stuck on a ventilator until they could do my surgery. So that's how we ended up going to Germany, because with the help of my family, I have an uncle over in Germany, and his wife works at the hospital that I've been going to. So she has helped us find the hospital and get over there and translate for us, and they've all been incredible. But the main reason we have to get it done over there and get it done privately is because I couldn't get it done in time in Ireland. So that's kind of a basic history.
So you say that it's not life-threatening now, but what has made it that it is not life-threatening now? What have you had to go through to get to that point? So
far this year I've had 2 surgeries. The first surgery was they took bone from my hip bone and they grafted it onto both of my jaws. And then the second surgery was 3 months later, and they reopened and put in 12 implants. So they're basically the posts that the teeth will then eventually be put onto. But the posts are really cool because they act like roots in your teeth, so they will stop my bone from deteriorating again so rapidly. So that's why I'm out of danger now, because I have those in, but I just don't have teeth. I have a little bit more to go before I have at least one maybe 2 more surgeries before I'll have teeth.
And what does that entail for you? What's the next step? How do you get the teeth?
The next step is I was supposed to go back in August, but my bone wasn't healing as fast as they had hoped, which can be another sign of what the condition I'm going through. They were giving it the bare minimum amount of time for me to heal, so they kind of expected that I would need to be given more time, but the bone is still kind of soft. So instead of August, they have me going back again in January, and they're going to reopen my gums and check the bone. If the bone has hardened enough, they could move on to the next step, which would be I'd wait a week to heal. They'd take the impressions for my teeth, and then there might be a small procedure in the meantime. An implant is split up into 3 sections. There is the post, the abutment, and the crown. The crown has the teeth on it, and the post is the bit that goes into your bone. But the abutment is the bit that connects those two. So normally what they have to do is there might be a small procedure in which they add the abutment first before they add the teeth. So it would be a case of taking impressions, then going back for the abutment, and then going back again for the teeth. If the bone hasn't hardened, I will need another surgery, which would consist of them taking bone and bone marrow from my leg, because the bone marrow acts as cement, and it would be another bone graft onto my jaws. And then we would wait a couple more months. It would just delay things slightly, but it would then go on the same pattern of if the bone's healed, they'd start the same process again. So it's a long road, but we're getting there.
With the bone being transplanted from your hip, is it then immune to the condition that you have, or is the implanted bone also prone to being affected by your condition?
So the implanted bone would still deteriorate, probably not at as fast a rate, but the main reason they had me in exactly 3 months after surgery 1 for the second surgery is because they wanted to wait long enough for me to heal, but not so long that that bone would start to deteriorate. So it is something that would happen, but it wouldn't be nearly as fast.
It'd bring it back to natural
deterioration. Yeah, because with how thin my bone was, and they took the maximum amount of bone from both sides of my hip that would have been safe, like without leaving me prone to having a hip fracture or anything. Like, they took what they maximum could, and they put that onto my jaw. So they kind of couldn't afford any deterioration, which is why the surgeries happened so close together, because I needed so much bone and they were only able to get enough. So for other people, they probably would implant a little more and there'd be some wiggle room if the healing doesn't go right. But for me, I already needed so much.
Heartlands on Midlands 103. Midlands 103. Just great radio.
Welcome back to Heartlands here in Midlands 103 with me, the Reverend Nigel Gill, where we are joined by John and Ray, Abby and Sarah. John, Ray and their friend George are going and running a 200-kilometre run called the Kerryway Ultra, and they are running it on behalf of Abby, who needs some essential surgery which can be got in Germany. Abby has outlined to us what the process is, what she has undergone so far, and what is left of the process. And now we turn our attention to her mum, Sarah. Sarah, it's wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for being here. And we'd like you to please share with us your side of the journey. How were things for you as Abby's mum?
Yeah, Abby explained it very well from when she was a child. We didn't know what was going on. It was very confusing for her and for me. I could see the effort she was putting into taking care of her teeth, but for some reason the teeth were still falling out. I remember one day she was eating pasta and she bit it and half her tooth fell out, like soft pasta. It was very difficult as a mum to watch your daughter in so much pain all the time. And like Abby said, we got to when she was 21 and it was a very big decision for Abby to to accept that all of her teeth were going to be gone and she was going to have dentures at 21. But it was brave, and it felt like this is the beginning now of you won't have pain and this is going to be over and we can move on. So I was actually really happy for a year. We were thinking this is brilliant. We're done with all this dentist stuff and teeth. And then the news we got last year was it was a major shock, because we thought we were going to find out and get a price for implants and, you know, to get a process for working out how we can get implants and finally finish it off. And then to be told that not only could she not get implants, but this was something that was going to be life-threatening. And they gave us the time frame, but she said, like, if she got a bad bang and the bones could, like, they were 1.3 millimetres thick, so they were so delicate. To be told 0.3, sorry. But then to be told here that it wasn't urgent enough to get done in time, and as a mum you're looking at your daughter and you're thinking there isn't anything more urgent than this, do you know? So that was very hard. But
as a matter of interest, Sarah, you being a person of faith and trusting in God, how did this news impact your faith and your relationship with God in regard to what your daughter was suddenly being exposed to in regard to this new chapter, these new discoveries?
I mean, I trusted God through the whole thing, and I know He has a plan in the whole thing. And we started fundraising, and of course you think, oh, God's going to sort this out now and it's going to be fixed. But I was reading very early on in the Bible in this process, and God says, and I know it's about a different thing, it's about physical suffering for somebody personally, but the verse that says, after you have suffered a little while I will deliver you. And I really felt that God was saying that about Abby's case, that God was going to sort it out. I trust Him to sort it out because He loves her more than I do. And I know that He has provided everything that we have needed when we've needed it, and not always way ahead of time. And that's it. That's the way it's gone with the fundraising, and people have been extremely generous. People have given an awful lot of money, and we couldn't have done it without people's generosity.
Can you give us an example of how you've seen God supply, yet there's that tension of having to wait?
John came to me Christmas week, actually, and said about this run. And I thought, I couldn't believe, first of all, that anybody who I had previously thought was quite a sane person was thinking of doing something so ridiculous. But they said they were happy to do it. They were going to do it anyway, and they'd love to do it for Abby. And in the back of my head, Nigel, I was thinking, God, they're not doing that till September, and the last surgery at that stage was planned for August. So I thought, I need all this money before that. But I thought, God, right, well, you've brought them for a reason, so let's go with it. So we did. And I mean, obviously God knows the end from the beginning. He knew we wouldn't actually need the money because the surgery was going to be put off till January, and His timing is perfect. But yeah, so we're very grateful for the three of them and what they're doing.
John Ray and George are aiming to raise 15,000 is their aim, but you're still needing 22,000 in total.
Yes. How
can a person go and support you or support Abby in this? How does one get funds to you?
Well, the guys there's an iDonate page that is set up. It's gone to idonate.ie. It's 200 km for Abby is what the page is. There is also a GoFundMe page as well, either ways, but the one for the men is 200 km for Abby.
One moment, just a quick Google search here. Yes, the Kerryway Ultra 200 kilometres in 40 hours for Abby. Abby spelt ABI. So if a person Googles the Kerryway Ultra 200 kilometres in 40 hours for Abby, you'll be brought directly to the page on iDonate. So returning to the topic of faith, I know you've spoken already a little on it. Question is, how has all of this impacted you as a person in regard to your faith? Have you found peace? Has it stretched you? What are the key things that have impacted you through this whole experience?
I mean, I think for me it's been quite a daily give it to God. And I give it to God and then I keep taking it back. And that's been a big learning curve for me, that when you give something to God, you have to leave it with Him. and you have to accept that he does know better and that he does have a plan. Sometimes, I was saying to the women in church yesterday, sometimes I find it's easy to give, when we got the first quote from Berlin and they said it was €91,989 was the total, I thought, right, well, God, I can't do that, so that one's yours. And it's easy to give him the big things, but sometimes the little things, I think, well, you handle the big ones and I'll handle the little ones. And actually I've realised I can't do them either. It's taught me to be fully reliant on him for everything, for all the details, because he does know better than me. And he cares about Abby more than me, which even as a mum sometimes is very hard to accept, that he cares about her. Because you think, yeah, but did you think of this? God, did you think of that? I know you're good, but did you think of this for Abby? And I have to learn to stop doing that and trust that he does know what he's doing.
Yes, as you're talking, the scripture that comes to my mind is Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. But like so many verses of scripture, it's much easier to say it and recite it than practice it. And so I hear your struggle and hear the continuous having to surrender and trust the Lord with the situation.
Heartlands on Midlands 103. Midlands 103. Just great radio.
Welcome back to Heartlands here on Midlands 103 with me, the Reverend Nigel Gill. Folks, we have been speaking about the fact that John, Ray and George are going to do the Kerryway Ultra Marathon, 200 kilometres. Each of them are doing 200 kilometres in a fundraising effort for Abby. You can support this through their I Donate page, which is the Kerryway Ultra 200 kilometres in 40 hours for Abby, as Abby is raising necessary funds to finish the reconstruction, basically, of her lower jaw and get her teeth replaced so that she can embrace life as normal in comparison to the last 21 years that she has had. We have listened to Abby sharing her story and sharing the process involved in that. We've listened to Sarah, her mother, going and sharing her side of the story. And we were talking to Sarah about her faith and how this whole circumstances that they found themselves in has impacted her faith. And now I'm going to turn the attention on Abby and ask her how it has impacted and affected her faith. So Abby, how has this impacted your faith?
I personally, before all of this was happening, was already struggling a bit with my faith, and I definitely still am. It's been both eye-opening and heartbreaking at the same time. I am an incredibly introverted person. I don't like talking about myself, and I don't like being the centre of attention. And all of this has put me so out of my comfort zone that I understand people say God doesn't give you more than you can handle, but at times it really feels like he's pushing the line. And I think that's what I've been struggling with a lot. I feel bad about it, but there is a bit of anger probably there, because it just seems to have been one thing after another, and I don't feel like I've had time to breathe. In the other side of things, it has been incredible to see how everybody from church to church and like just community and my family and friends, everyone around me and strangers coming together for me. But it's still something that I'm struggling with personally myself, because there's been a huge mental toll on me, and I already I wouldn't have had the best situation when it came to my mental health. I've struggled with anxiety for years. I've struggled with depression, and all of this kind of came at a time where I was just starting to work and do the work to get myself out of a hole, and I felt like someone saw me climbing out and stood on my hand to drop me back down. So I'm slowly trying my best to climb my way back out. So it's a very big roller coaster, At the moment, it is incredible to see the sense of community, but there's a lot of internal struggles, I think, for me at the moment.
So before we wrap this up, Sarah, Abby, thank you so much for your time. I would just like to ask you one more question. Is there anything else you would like to say, or anything that's on your hearts to say before, as I said, we bring our interview to a close?
Say like how grateful we are for the men and what they're doing, because I was down with my mum and my brother and his family 2 weeks ago in Kerry, and we were putting out some leaflets, you know, for the fund, and we drove the route, some of the route that they're going to be, you know, we went to every town that's on the thing, and oh my goodness, driving around it, and we walked bits of it, but I mean, it's very different than even the thoughts of 200 kilometres on a road. But this is not road. It's not even just a field. It's up and down. There's rocks. There's, you know, you're through field farmland. You're through land that only goats go on. You know, it's a colossal challenge, and they really are. They're amazing for doing it.
Crazy, but amazing.
Yeah, yeah, a bit of both. And thank you for the chance to come on and talk and to listen to us.
No problem. No problem at all.
Heartlands on Midlands 103. Midlands 103. Just great radio.
That song was chosen by Abby herself, and the lyrics are very deep, very dark. But the chorus goes and says, "You are not a burden, you are not your past, you're not your first mistake, and you're not your last. Don't let these demons tell you there's no way out of the dark. That's how you feel, but that's not who you are." With the journey that she has been on, she has alluded to the fact that she finds herself in a very dark space and has suffered from mental health issues and various things like that. And one of the things that really struck me, as I've spoken with a number of people lately in that frame of mind, is Psalm 23 goes and says that the Lord leads us in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And that verse is just before, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me." The point is that the sheep in the psalm finds itself on the path of righteousness, even though it is walking through the darkest valley, or the valley of the shadow of death. It's not about the circumstances around about you, or the circumstances that you find yourself in, that should define who and where you're at. But it's the company that you keep. And in that verse it goes and tells us that you, God, the Lord, our shepherd, is with me, and I will fear no evil, and your rod and staff, they comfort me. One of the things that Sarah went and said to me while we were having this conversation was that in her journey she has come to appreciate and to know that no matter what is going on, the Lord is with her. Emmanuel, God with us. And so, even though the journey has been up and down, even though there has been tough times, even though there are tough times, even though you may be going through tough times, the company we keep matters most. Can you go and say that you know that the Lord is with you, and therefore you do not need to fear? You are not a burden. You are not your past. You're not your first mistake, and you're not your last. Don't let these demons tell you that there's no way out of the dark. That's how you feel, but that's not who you are. When we have Christ with us, that is definitely not who we are. Folks, that's all we have time for. If you have opportunity and can, please support Abby on her journey to wholeness and health. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, show you grace, and turn his face towards you, and give you peace. Amen.
Heartlands on Midlands 103. Midlands.